Hey there, funnel builders. How's it going? Mike here from Sell Your Service, and today I wanted to go over some of the uh, long-form blog content that I've got going on. So I want to make sure that everything is broadcasting correctly. Obviously, if you're watching the recording, hello. Sorry, I haven't edited all this stuff out. I have written a 23,000 word blog post. And basically the idea is that I want to teach people how to run a profitable, successful marketing funnel business in 2019. Now, in a previous video, which I'll try and link to, I think it might only be available inside the Facebook group, but I'll try and link it to that. And if you're not a member, just join, go ahead and join, and we'll try and get you in. I talked through the structure that I use in order to be able to write a lot of content very, very quickly. So if you are watching live, say hello. I'm in here as well. And what I'm going to do is show you how I've finished the content, but also it's really important to understand it's not just writing. I believe that the single reason that I was kind of successful in creating this content and creating a lot of content very repeatedly and very quickly, as well as, you know, all the books and stuff and courses, is the difference between writing and editing, and then seeing editing as kind of the second half of the process. I think a lot of people edit as they write. I have a habit of pretty much just dumping on the page everything that I do. I have actually got a link available, which I'll put in the comments, but I'll also, in the recording, I'll put that in the description, although by the time this video goes out, it'll probably already be a live blog post. In the previous video, I basically went through and just bullet pointed out everything that I was doing. So I took people through the problem, the promise, the myth, the high-level overview, kind of the solution, turned a few objections. And then I went in and kind of put subheadings inside every single one of those and just wrote a quick sentence about what it is that I wanted to go over. And then I went in and wrote a paragraph for each sentence, and it's come to about 23,000 words. I finished this yesterday, and now I have to go back and edit it. But also what I'm doing is, and you'll see, I'm creating content from this post to use to promote the post, to use within the post itself to break it up so it's not just a wall of text. I'm a pretty avid believer that having just well-written content that is easy to read with a decent font and a decent font size is enough. There's a lot of books written and not all of them have pictures in. So I believe that if you have to use a lot of imagery in content like this to be able to keep people's attention, then maybe you should check out your writing style. Having said that, it is a nice way to break up the text. It's unlikely that someone's going to consume this whole blog post in one sitting, although some people will. So we want to put a few things like GIFs and images and things like that. And you'll see kind of how I'm going about that process of breaking it out. So if I jump in and share my screen here. Cool. In fact, let's jump into so here we go. You guys should be able to see this now. So this is the whole blog post here. Let me just get rid of all this stuff here. And it goes through this section here all the way up. That's just the introduction. That's the opening promise that I'm going to make to the reader. I promise we're going to be able to pay you a salary, you know, help define a niche, etc. As you can see, I've written through this, and what was important is I just taught, in this case, half dictation, half typing. I just wrote. I didn't go back and rewrite anything. I didn't delete anything. If it was misspelt, fine. If it was bad grammar, fine. It was if the dictation software didn't quite understand me perfectly, that's fine. The important thing is getting it out on paper. That's the hard part. Now, there's absolutely no way that I would be able to hit publish on this now, partly because I use dictation software, but also I'm not a great typist, to be honest. My spelling's pretty terrible. So by going through this now, what I'm doing is going through and beginning to format it. I've added headings here. So these are now tagged as H3 and these are now tagged as H2. And pretty much throughout the entire process, you can see here at the top, originally it just said promise. And the overall promise is about how to generate more income and attract more clients. This one here was problem. And so the overall problem is what's stopping you from running a profitable, successful business. These are tagged as H2, and I've gone through this. Now I'm only about halfway through the editing process for this, and I wanted to share with you a few other things that I'm going to start doing. First of all, any quotes I've put into the quote format, block quote, and I've formatted them to have a full stop and then speech or speech marks either side of the quote. And then I've also had the not the author of the quote. I don't know what it is. The attribution to the quote, whoever said the quote underneath whenever I've used it. Something that I've seen a lot of people do in their blog content, which I really, really enjoy, is going through their own stuff and picking out quotes. So picking out their own things and turning them into quotes. What I'll do with these is create image-based content based around these quotes here, and these will go into the blog post and kind of reiterate. So for example, I simply couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. If I can find that. Here we go. I simply couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. It's quite high up. It's in the problem area here. And chances are I'll probably put an image with that, use Canva or something to create a quote-based blog, a quote-based image, similar to the type of thing you see on Instagram. If I jump into Instagram, and I'll embed that in the blog post itself. No, not Kook Slams. I want my one. So this here, like your income is directly tied to the number of offers you make. This is something that I've written in a previous blog post. So I want to create something like this and put it in this content here. But again, it's about going through that process. It's not about finding this now and going and doing it now. I've created a document where I'm putting together all of the things that I want to remind people about, kind of use as like a breakup topic. And also I'll repurpose these as Instagram posts. All of these will then become Instagram posts, which will have a link back to this particular blog post. So it's all designed to kind of tie in together and come back to this blog post. The final kind of thing that I'm going to be doing is looking for GIFs, images, captions, memes, anything that I can put in that reflects something that we talk about. For example, I think I talk about shiny object syndrome. Yes, in this blog post, you'll know whether you should or shouldn't buy any of the shiny objects that are sold to you. That to me is a perfect one for is it take my wallet or take my money? From Fry, from Futurama. Yeah, shut up and take my money. So just it's about going through and highlighting all of those different areas where I'm going to be using memes and anything from kind of pop culture or GIFs as well. They do really well. Half of that is to give my content team, my social media team, something to work with when they're creating then Twitter content and Facebook content. A part of it as well is also for SEO purposes. Google likes blog posts where people stay on them longer, and people stay on blog posts longer when there's images. And also I can tag those images, and that's always super useful. So that kind of it works a lot in tandem. The idea is what I'm trying to do is create, it's not just a long form piece of content, it's about a really high quality killer piece of content that I want people to bookmark and I want people to come back to and refer to. Even if we come down all the way down here, if you watch the little scroll bar on the right, it's only up to here. That's even about me. Here we go. So we're about a third of the way, a quarter of the way down, and that's still introducing the problem, talking about the promise, talking about the myths and the solution, really taking a long time to build that story and get people used to my way of speaking, how I'm writing, and what it is I'm talking about. So it's vital that we put as much content in that's as possible. The last thing I really want to talk about is deleting words. The hardest thing I believe that people do is they look at their written content and they think everything I've written here is gold. It's a really funny thing that happens where we struggle to write one paragraph to start with because we keep going back over it and rewriting it. And yet when we have finally written it, we're then hesitant to get rid of any of it. As a rule, you want to cut out at least half of your content. Now I'm still going through that, and it's not that I didn't write 40,000 words, that's mental, but if this came down to 15,000 words, that'd be absolutely fine. So I'm going through and I'm removing as much as I can. Any times where I've repeated myself, I use a lot of conjunctive texts, such as often or so. I'll often start a sentence with things like that, which is just fluff and it doesn't need to be there. I have a habit of repeating sentences as well, where I'll start the sentence at the top of the paragraph and then I'll repeat it in more depth. So I can either get rid of the second half or I can get rid of the first sentence. And usually it's the second half that I get rid of, because it's just repeating itself and it's expanded on it for no real reason. We do have an idea that we want to constantly give as much content away as possible. And I get that. I really understand that. But in truth, people are only going to take around 20% of what you say away from it, right? The core of what you do, if we look at the 80-20 rule, the 20% of like the really killer, like high quality golden nugget meat based stuff is repeated kind of throughout 80% of the text. So there's a lot of it that you don't need to have in there anyway. It's not about the length, it's about the quality of the content that comes in there. So yeah, that's kind of just an overview of the editing process that I'm going through and creating those quotes and taking my own stuff out. And I'll be making posts, you know, on Canva. For those who don't know, Canva's got a really easy Instagram tool. So if I was to take one of these quotes here, here we go. The single most important role of the business owner and entrepreneur is to raise capital. That's something that I want to have as a quote. If I jump into Canva and after it loads, I can then create a little quick Instagram post, and I can use that Instagram post in the content itself, as well as on Instagram when I post out, and on Facebook. Matt Davies, woo blogs. Yeah, tell me about it, man. Who doesn't love a good blog? I thought I said sales Instagram post. I was like, yeah, category just for sales. No, it said sale. All right, fine. So we'll choose something like this. Nothing says raising capital. No, that's too much. And you can change the size. You guys know how Canva works. You know, it's like any other kind of tool. Here we go. Single most important role of the business owner, entrepreneurs to raise capital. And I think it was actually Robert Kiyosaki who said that. Maybe not as many words, but I'll happily attribute it to myself. So this then goes inside the blog content. Cool. Well, that is about it for the size of the blog content. I've got a couple of little comments here. Matt Davis says, I've been enjoying missing letter with that feature for pulling out quotes. Yeah, I like that you've made a big list of them already. Not a bad idea at all. This is just part of the editing process, Matt. So it's part of going through and finding out what is it that I want to reiterate or remind people about, or kind of position as a thought that I've got. Yeah, cool. Thanks very much for joining, guys. If this has helped, let me know in the comments below. Super useful when you're creating blog content, if this has been useful for you. And I'll also make sure that I put the link below for the blog so you can read through that. In the meantime, guys, thanks very much for watching, and yeah, I'll see you on the next call. Cheers, guys.